Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Raad on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Raad Gontos.
Raad Gontos, where are you? He's not here. You don't look like Raad Gontos.
No, I
don't.
My
goodness.
I don't.
Well,
Unless Rod wears like polka dots.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
He's a free spirit.
Yeah.
This week, he's free of his duties. He's back. He's visiting some family, and we are privileged to have with us just Tanya.
Oh,
just the great Tanya Brown.
Me.
Sitting with us.
Yeah.
And who did you bring along with you?
Jodi Barber. So Jodi and I, yay, I'm so excited to have you here because I work in senior care. I'm in a hospice agency, Vitas Healthcare, and maybe I shouldn't announce that.
That's okay.
But it's all, no.
Let's get you both a little closer to the mics here.
It's okay for us, but I don't know if it's okay for them. But regardless, Jodi and I, we've done so many things with regards to prescription drug overdose, the opiate awareness, and it's not even just an epidemic, it's a pandemic. And, we're constantly getting news, information about this. But before we really get started, I want to read Jodi's bio, just so you really understand who is speaking to you, or somebody that you know, or maybe it's even a kid that you just, it's unconditional love when you have a child. So Jodi lost her 19-year-old son and 3 of his close friends, to an accidental prescription drug overdose in 2010.
Oh, my goodness.
I never had the honor of meeting Jared, but I know her surviving son, Blake, and still to this day I call him my future ex-husband because he's absolutely adorable, but he's, it would be awful. But anyway, she soon realized that her son's death and many others that year were preventable, and she became a strong advocate. I put the label of Jodi as my Orange County warrior mama against prescription drug overdoses.
Can I just ask you a few questions here, because I didn't know this until the last minute what the topic was here today, and it is certainly a topic. We're doing this for those listening later in the summer of 2017. This is the hot topic this year.
Good.
When did people wake up to this? I assume that the crisis didn't hit this year, that it's been here for a while.
There were a few overdoses happening before my son passed away in 2010. There were a few that I after my son passed, I had heard of. But after Jared did pass away, January 2010, and then his close friend that was in the Army a week and a half later, and another good friend of his 6 months after Jared, and then another close friend 11 months later, and then more in between that I didn't know personally. I soon discovered it sounded to me like we had an epidemic.
Yeah.
And so with all these, and they were boys, all these boys who were dying, teenagers, in 2010, I immediately said, where's the regulating? There's just no regulations here. So I wanted to expose a very dirty doctor where these kids were getting their prescription drugs. So I got the news.
Mention her name.
Dr. Lisa Singh. And so I asked the news to come to my home and expose this doctor on the news. And then.
And they were getting them for what? For sports or for injuries or for
all of it.
What?
All
sports
of the above.
Injuries,
because we do another show called The Grief Girl, and we have some other people who've come on and done different shows, and they've talked at different times about different things here. I just know that there's an awful lot of kids getting an awful lot of powerful opioids for, gee, you had a knee surgery. Gee, you have a back injury from sports. Sports seems to be a big one.
It wasn't even a knee injury or a back injury. It was actually a broken thumb.
Broken thumb, okay.
Or just walking in to the doctor's office and just saying verbally, without even any tests or X-rays, and just saying, oh, you know what, I think my wrist is broken. And that's all
Well,
it
didn't
took.
Lisa Singh, Dr. Lisa Singh? I mean, I don't even want to give her that title of
Right,
doctor anymore.
I don't either.
The inmate Lisa Singh. Didn't she fabricate people's
did
files?
she lose her license or
Oh
anything?
yeah, oh yeah.
She's in
spending
jail for the rest of her life, 30
Yeah.
years to life.
30 years
Okay.
to
On
life.
3 counts of second-degree murder and 21 more counts.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
From the abuse of prescribing these things.
People would come in from Tucson, Arizona. They would drive 8 hours from Tucson.
There's a 2-hour wait to see her, and the
Oh, my
receptionist
God.
said to the doctor, "What do? We have a 2-hour wait out there." And she says, "They're just drug addicts. They can wait."
Isn't that awful?
There was an overdose in her bathroom. I mean, the story is just so horrific. And
So she just was a pill mill.
A pusher.
pill mill doctor, you know what? She was a drug dealer in a white coat.
There you
Wow.
go.
That's what she
Wow,
was.
that's powerful.
So let's assume that all doctors don't fit that category, but they're
course not.
still over-prescribing these things is the general assumption. That's what I'm hearing, that an awful lot of people have gotten these things for some legitimate reason or some stated need, and then they get quickly hooked in it. And what are we talking? Oxycontin and other, give us some
Where it
examples.
starts.
Well,
Pills can kill.
Pills
yeah,
can kill us.
Percocet, Vicodin, Norco, you name it, really.
Soma.
All these-
Somas,
And the fact that we all know
Adderall.
these, the fact that we know those brand names says how many people we know have taken pills
know,
like that.
I mean, and we're talking about seniors as well. But before we go into that, you've got kids who are taking pills before their prefrontal cortex is even developed.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so they're with the prefrontal cortex. I can never pronounce that. Anyway, it's being developed under
Yeah,
their
their brains.
induction.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. So, yeah, their brains are still developing. They don't develop until 25, 26. So these powerful opiates that they're given, and they're not giving 3 in a bottle. They're giving 90, or how about 200 in a bottle?
Jodi, my mom went in for, I forgot what it was. She had an overreaction to a blood pressure medication. She comes out, the doctor prescribed her, I think, 120 pills of Ativan or something like that.
Jeez.
Or Ambien or so, I think it was Ativan. It was Ativan
And she's taking it as prescribed.
as
Yes.
prescribed.
She's not abusing.
no.
Right.
She's not abusing these pills, and we have this horrific epidemic of senior citizens dying.
Yeah.
So,
So before we get into senior, I just want to again
Yeah.
paint the picture here. So for years, why did doctors overprescribe these things? What's the theory? Why did they give you these?
they're getting kickbacks.
Mm-hmm.
They do. They
Cars,
get,
vacations.
And they weren't educated. When Big Pharma, when they were first told to, these pills aren't addictive. This is what they were told. They weren't told, correctly by Big Pharma. They were just told, this is going to make your pain go away quickly.
no harm, no
So-
foul. Give them away like candy.
Yeah.
Basically.
All right.
Jodi, tell us about the night, and I think it's really important, and I know it's a painful thing, and I always get tears in my eyes because I lost a sister, and my pain was watching, my parents. I'm the youngest sister of Nicole Brown Simpson, so, watching my parents, that was my pain. Losing a sister, it was manageable, but seeing my parents go through that, I want to paint the picture of that pain, and I know it's hard for all of us, and we'll talk about the night of remembrance as time goes on. But for those parents, who are really struggling, and tell us about that night. And I'm all about let's show the raw, because people really need to know the reality of it.
Yeah.
And share only what you feel comfortable in doing.
Yeah,
okay?
I've told the story, that I do presentations, and for the last 7 years, I do tell Jared's story over and over. It never gets easy.
No.
It won't ever get
It gets
easy.
harder.
And it is a nightmare to have to remember seeing my son barely breathing on that couch. What happened was that, I took him to a doctor to get him off of the cravings of the opiates and the marijuana. And he was overprescribed, more pills, Seroquel and Klonopin and Cymbalta. And knowing that Jared can relapse on Opana, that is...
What is Opana? Because
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know about that.
Opana, or oxymorphone. What that is it's 100 times stronger than Oxycontin, and it's supposed to be only used for terminal stage cancer. And Dr. Lisa Singh was overprescribing Opana to Jared's friends. Jared would have seen her as well, but he didn't have cash. But he was in the waiting room. You know,
How did they know about her? Was this just passed around from friend to friend that this is a place you can go?
It was passed around with 90 in a bottle. It was passed around from friend to friend, and they were going in there as well, you know, on their own and prescribed upon
And how your son was what, 19?
My son was 19.
So he's an adult, so he can just go do this on his own.
And in my eyes, I don't care if he's 18 or 19.
Or
to me, you know,
90.
Yeah. He's a teenager. I don't consider, you know, just because of his age, any age, if they're addicted to, you know, to prescription drugs of any age, you know what? I think that they shouldn't be prescribed these
How
pills.
did he get addicted to prescription drugs? This was just saying before he started this. How did the journey start?
The journey started with marijuana, and that was a long journey, 5 years dealing with that. But what really happened with the prescription drugs was when he broke his collarbone. And he was almost 17, and the nurse gave him Vicodin. And Jared liked it. And he didn't stop.
Wasn't there somebody, because you just posted it, and for all those who are tech savvy, follow Jodi on Jodi Barber on Facebook. I mean, you honestly, I mean, you hold nothing back. I mean, you're the exposer here in Orange County, which is phenomenal. But you did post something just the other day about, oh my God, I lost my train of thought. You just posted something. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, well,
I lost my train of thought. It'll come back.
Well, let me ask some other questions because this is the first I've heard the story, and really, I appreciate you sharing this. This is painful. It's painful to hear. I'm sure it's even more painful to tell.
Talk about it.
But it's painful if we don't wake up and pay attention to this, because by the time you wake up, it's too late.
That's right.
So how did you discover he was hooked on? You struggled with, he got apparently into marijuana big time, and then how did you discover that Vicodin didn't go away, that he was still getting it, and how would he still get it? He's 17.
Okay, well...
so how did you discover it, and how did he get it?
He might have gotten it just down the street from his best friend who had it in his medicine cabinet because his mother had cancer, and he may have been getting it there. You know, I don't have that answer.
My daughter went to Tesoro High School a number of years ago, 5-6 years ago. She graduated, and she used to come home and tell us these horror stories. Tesoro's one of these nicer suburban, affluent schools here outside the gates of Kodo.
Right.
And these kids would have pill parties, and they'd all bring in pills from their parents' cabinet. And I hate to say it, I'm thinking right now, somewhere in our cabinet is probably a leftover something like Ativan or Oxycontin or something that I got from something that we just didn't throw away. We got prescribed it because there was some pain, broke my hand, did something, and I left it in the cabinet. And parents are doing this. And then the kids are raiding the cabinets. That's what I hear.
Jodi, tell us about the reality party to educate the parents. The reality party, it's for the parents, and it's held at the Community Outreach Alliance, COA, otherwise known as COA, in San Clemente. And you were on the panel. Tell us about the reality party.
Yeah, it's a really good program there with teenagers that they act out, a party, and they act out the whole scene, drinking
Sober.
at the party. They're drinking, and they're bringing in their pills and putting them in a bowl, and they're sharing, and they're sharing this, and then, they're overdosing. And do you call 911? No, I'm afraid to call 911. What do I do? But today, don't be afraid because the Good Samaritan law passed. So you're not going to go to jail. You're not going to get arrested.
But wasn't there a deal
save a
in,
life.
I think it was Penn State or someplace like that, where these kids, some kid overdosed doing something like this at a frat party, and they spent hours, almost a day, before they decided to call someone. The kid died, of course, during that period of time because they were panicked to call the police and all get caught.
Nobody's going to get in trouble.
It's very tragic.
Save a life.
I have a poster of 24 faces of beautiful kids who passed away, and a couple, one is 15 years old, and the other one, beautiful boys who were, tossed out of the car, one in the dirt, and one just a few blocks away from home.
To lose the body.
Yeah.
Well, and also to prevent them from getting into trouble. So check out online, at the Raad Life or the Raad Life, because I would love to post that poster.
Yes.
Because these are kids and I've known, I mean, Nick was my nephew's best friend, and I get tears in my eyes. And, it's to see these beautiful kids just pass. But you know what? It can happen at any age.
These are kids that panic. Maybe they're high themselves,
Right.
Yeah.
or they're afraid they're going to go to jail, and
Right.
something gets out of control, and their only answer is hide the body, or ditch it, or leave.
They're not even, they're not even dead. They're overdosing, and they know it, and so they don't know what to do because they're overdosing. But instead of taking them to the hospital, they get scared, and they just let them out of the car
and dump them.
And
What did
they dump 'em.
So, and I'm
Unbelievable.
not insensitive. I mean, I love Jodi with all my heart, but I'm all about let's expose the real pain.
Yes.
And I do that with domestic violence because until we do that, I don't really think that people will get it.
No.
What do you call when his friends left and you and Bill and then later on you found Blake, or woke up Blake to find Jared? What did you call it? A drug-induced coma? Is that what it was?
Yes, Jared was in a drug-induced coma. His friends left him on the couch at 12:30, and they tried to wake him, and he was snoring, and they thought he was just sleeping. So I absolutely do not hold them to blame.
Of course not.
Yeah, they love Jared.
You don't know what you don't know.
They didn't know. They didn't know.
Yeah.
And then they left at 12:30, and so at 3 in the morning we woke up. My husband woke up and went downstairs and saw Jared sitting up on the couch. His eyes were open, and tried to wake him, and he couldn't. And he said, "Jodi, come down."
Yeah.
And that's when I,
The chaos
watched.
happened.
Yeah, he had his father, my husband. He had to do CPR, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Pump his chest, all of that, trying to wake up Jared, and some stuff.
But
came
his
out.
eyes were open, or he was sitting up, but he was in a coma, basically.
Yeah, and some stuff came out of his mouth, and that's when I thought Jared was going to wake up after, letting that out. But I was on the phone with 911, and I called 911, and then the paramedics came and worked on him some more and rushed him to the hospital where Jared was born at Mission.
Where he was born. Oh my
Jared
God.
passed away at 3:47.
And what did he die of? What was in his system?
The combination of a quarter of Opana that they had crushed that night when I was sleeping.
Talk about time release Opana, because it's time release,
What
correct?
is Opana again? Yeah, and what is it again? I know you just did it, but I've forgotten already. What is Opana? Is it it's a prescription drug, or it's a...
Yes, it's a prescription drug. It's a painkiller for terminal stage cancer.
Oh.
And
that's right. Okay.
and when it's a 12-hour release to the brain, but when you do crush it, and what his friends did, they cut it up into quarters, and then they snorted it. When you do that, it becomes an immediate rush.
Yeah.
But it's very dangerous. And so
he had that in his system, and he had what else in his system?
yeah, and they feel like they can rule the world, and it's so addictive. Once they try it one time, they're hooked.
Really?
I mean, it's very addicting. So he had that in his system because he relapsed on that. But he also had 6 other pills from the doctor I took him to get off of the Opana. At the first visit, that doctor promised me that all Jared's cravings would go away, and they weren't going away. Jared was relapsing while he was on these other meds. They weren't working for Jared. So it was the Klonopin, the
So what would you tell to
Seroquel.
parents who are in the middle of this nightmare, who know their kids are headed in this direction, or suspect
What would you
it?
tell them?
What would you tell them to do?
What are the signs?
What are the signs? There's a
Yeah.
good one. How do you
What are the signs?
recognize it?
Well, in their change, Jared, he always was like bipolar, I guess you want to call it. He would be happy, and then he'd be, then he'd get angry, and he was controlling at times, and all of that. And he threw tantrums when he was a little toddler. So he was a little handful, but he was a happy kid for the most part. And then the signs, to look for when I look back is when Jared would be extra quiet when he'd come home. That wasn't my son. So when he would just sit there watching TV and just kind of a daze, he was just quiet, really quiet. Or he was extra happy. And I mean, extra happy jumping around, or I also found out after he passed away that he did, I don't know how many times, shoot up heroin. And that's because it's a lot cheaper than the opiates, and the opiates are heroin in a pill form. And they crave their fix. But anyway, he did shoot up heroin. I'll never know how many times. But I recall him, he always wore a hat, a baseball cap. And he was like scratching his head and sweaty, in his head. Just kind of that look. Now that I'm aware and I'm educated, now I know.
So changes in behavior, peculiar behavior, yeah.
Even change of friends,
Change of friends.
Change of friends, yeah.
And nodding off. And so that's when we got our son help, was when we caught him nodding off at 3 in the morning in the backyard, freezing cold.
And what did that help look like? You went to a clinic, you went to a rehab center, you went to... Where'd you go?
No, he did not go to rehab. He said it didn't help his friends, and he didn't want rehab.
Sometimes it can be worse.
Yes.
And Jodi's taking him down. I love you. I love you for that.
So what was the help that you got then? And what would you recommend people to help? So we've got some signs, some troubling signs. Now now do we do? Where do we go for help?
Don't wait until the nodding off stages. Yeah. Don't wait.
And it doesn't need to happen at 3 a.m. I mean, it happens at the dinner table. It happens during breakfast, making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, Jodi. We've experienced it.
And this was the first time.
Indirectly.
Right. And this was, when we caught our son nodding off 3 months before he passed away in the backyard at 3 in the morning. That was the only time I ever saw Jared do that. My son do that. So that was when immediately the next day we're like, what do we do? My husband and I said we need to get him help, and he didn't want rehab. So we went to a psychologist, and a psychologist in Orange County said, I want to send you to, quote unquote, the best doctor in Orange County. And that's what, that's what he recommended, and that's what we did.
And they prescribed pills to what?
For anti-anxiety, antidepressants, and then for sleeping. The Seroquel, 2 days before Jared passed, that he had taken that night for the first time, and he prescribed him 3 to 4 of those. And so the combination...
That just sounds like more pills on top.
Absolutely. Let's talk
I'm not an expert, but that doesn't sound like the solution to me here.
No. I mean, it's like I have a problem. I mean, I have to take medication, and I'm very open to it. I attempted a suicide in 2004. Was it 2004? I even forgot. But anyway, I attempted it. My brain's not the same. But what makes me different is that I do take them as prescribed. And I'm in constant mindful awareness, mind, body, soul. But Jodi, do you remember when we went to, I think at that time it was still South Coast Medical, now Mission. Do you remember we were starting a task force? There was that.
Yes.
Okay, there was one man, and he was to my right, a couple of people down, and I saw him getting kind of agitated. And all of a sudden, he stood up, and he said, you know what we need? We need prevention. We need mindfulness. We need meditation. We need nature. We here in Southern Orange County, I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, even my cousins in Germany are, sharing information about the epidemic in Germany, in Europe. It's so really, it's just not here. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And it does not discriminate on age, socioeconomic status, nothing. But do you remember that man? I don't know if you remember him.
I don't.
But I think it just resonated with me because I was raised, on the beach, not on the beach, but by the beach. We hung out with my parents. We had kitchen table conversation. I just think this world is so busy with technology. We're not able to connect. And I don't blame parents for anything. I mean, I'm you, and then I know so many other parents who are awesome parents who have kids that just struggle. But I also think technology kind of is controlling that. And it's overstimulating the brain. I remember talking to a psychiatrist at the Amen Clinic, Dr. Lawrence Tucker, right? You know Lawrence, or Dr. Tucker, with respect. And I remember asking him, why are we seeing so much of this right now? And he goes, are you ready to hear this? And I said, yeah, what is it? And he goes, simple. He goes, the brain is stressed. So I really think, it's not parenting. So you got a nasty quote from somebody where it was like, right? You were like,
Oh, yeah.
it's not Jodi, it's not Bill, because you could be like the best parents.
Oh gosh, Dr. Lisa Singh told me
Right?
when I bursted into her through her doors to ask her why would she overprescribe pills, deadly combinations, and prescribe Opana. She kept saying no comment until she finally told me it's the parents' fault. And I just...
It's your fault. You know what strikes me, and I've heard lots of stories sitting in this chair over several years, many as painful as yours, and that is it can happen anywhere,
Anyone.
to anybody. We've had addicts sit in that chair, and I asked them one time we were doing a show, we had actually brought in some addicts, and somebody had been in and out of rehab 100 times, in and out of jail 100 times, heroin user, all this stuff. And he talked about, my mother was a saint. She hung in there with me. She tried tough love. She tried all love. She tried every kind of combination you could think of. And I finally said to him, I said, so what should they have done? He said, nothing. Nothing. It was in me. I got it. I hooked it. I liked it. I wasn't going to stop no matter what until I was ready. Till I either died or I was ready, I wasn't going to stop. Yeah.
And Jodi and I, we've had many conversations with that. And anytime, people will come to me, they'll come to you, and I'll get private messages and text messages about, my kid, my daughter, my son, my friend, and they're battling either with mental health. I mean, there's co-occurring disorders, as we know, with drug addiction, substance addiction comes another set of mental health issues. But they'll reach out to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the hardest job that we can do in the world of, treatment, domestic violence, behavioral health. The hardest job, and Jodi can attest to this, is that if somebody doesn't want help, it's so hard.
It's so hard.
We really need, both of us, we need to meet where the person is. And if they're not ready, it's the hardest job because we see the light at the end of the tunnel for them.
Exactly. And, and that's why it's so hard until they're ready.
But these are your kids. You can't just sit and watch them.
No, you don't.
You can't, and you can never give up. And no matter how hard it is. And
you don't give up.
It's like the hardest thing ever to deal with your kid, a teenager who already has issues, on drugs and on
all teenagers have issues. That's why they're teenagers. They don't know who they are.
I know.
They're crazy. They're experimenting.
But you add drugs on top of that.
When they have these drugs in their system on top of all of the other issues they have, for a parent, it's the hardest thing to deal with. And you do want to just give up. You want to throw in the towel. You just want to go, oh my God, I'm done. I'm done. And I had those feelings at times. I was like, but I couldn't. There's no way. My love for Jared, I wouldn't give up on him. But I had those feelings, and I do know parents who have. And it's sad to me.
Write them off. Done. Or some people say that's the tough love theory. I'm not going to. I'm going to be tough on you like a Marine drill sergeant.
And that's not all. Yeah, the tough love, throwing them out of your house. That works for some. It doesn't work for all of them. It does not work for a lot of them because I deal with those kids, and they're not dealing with their kids anymore.
Yeah.
And so some of these kids are taking care of their parents, and their grandparents. But before we go into that, Jodi is the woman, the warrior mama, as I call you, will, as she's going through, a drive-through, Taco Bell or going to Costco or whatever, you will always stop if you see somebody who looks like they're struggling, no matter what age, but usually you're drawn to the younger kids because of Jared. But, you don't dismiss anyone. And to me, you are just so admirable what's happening with that phone. Anyway, but you are so, I admire you. I really do admire you. But let's talk. You're sweet, but let's talk about. And in fact, my whole family loves you. I mean, you've helped so many people that we all love, and that the Brown family loves. And this doesn't discriminate. I grew up in Monarch Bay, and we know people in not in the Monarch Bay community, but just in our little small circle of influence.
Anybody, anywhere. It's happening in
Anyone.
small town America where wasn't
I
supposed
talked
to happen.
about Germany. I mean, it's happening everywhere. So
Everywhere.
let's talk about, because sometimes, the Rad Life is pretty much like based around the senior community too. But you've got these kids who are taking care of mom, or they're taking care of dad. I was taking care of dad, right? I was a caregiver for 8 years along with my dad. We had morphine in the refrigerator, okay?
In the refrigerator, yeah,
In the
right.
refrigerator. So if it got to that point,
When the pain
right?
was too much,
when
right.
the pain was too much, and the rule number one that the nurse said, do not administer if it's not there, and if you feel uncomfortable, always call the nurse. However, if there is an addict living in the house and you don't know who that addict is or what they even look like, and there's morphine with a syringe, okay,
that's why I always ask parents and grandparents to lock up their pills.
Yeah.
And I know that's a hassle. Maybe now you have to unlock it, but you
Doesn't
have,
matter.
It doesn't. It's too important.
Yeah.
You have
And
to lock
can
it
I
up.
give everybody one challenge right now? Anybody listening to this today, tomorrow, you think it's not you, can't happen to you, and everything else. Go look in your own pill closet.
Yeah.
Right now.
yeah.
Go look there and see what you've forgotten is sitting in that drawer. I guarantee you, if you're like me, there's some set of pills that you're not even sure what it is anymore, why you got them. But they're still sitting there because somehow... I went to my aunt is 93. I was going through her drawer the other day looking for something, and I found bottles of pills, some years old, some rather strong pills. I said, why you got all these? Well, I know, doctor prescribed them to me. Well, throw them out. Oh, I don't know. No, don't. Somehow I paid for them. I might need them someday here. They're expensive. So she had a whole pharmacy full of crazy pills there.
Yeah. Let me tell you, the heroin addict isn't the junkie standing on the corner talking to a light post and talking to himself and all, but back in the day in the 60s or 70s, I was born in 69. So, I mean, I just go off of pictures and, Janis Joplins, right? They're not the Janis Joplins or the Jimi Hendrix of the world anymore.
Right.
These are people no matter what age, because really heroin comes in a pill form too. And these are kids, adults that serve us, right? They wait on us when we go to a restaurant. Maybe they're doing customer service over the phone. Heroin is not, keep in mind the signs of, right, with the nodding off that you mentioned, all of a sudden they're quiet, and this can go to your teenager, it can go to your mom, your grandparent. It does not discriminate. Just keep in mind, we're not talking about the Janis Joplins of the world anymore. They don't look,
like a drug addict.
I love her music, but they don't look like that drug addict.
Oh, no.
Also, talking about pills in the medicine cabinet, Jodi, and maybe you know more about this too, that some of the kids were taking, if you have a sick animal, they were taking the pills that were prescribed to their animals. Now, this doesn't, again, it does not discriminate between teenagers or mom or grandpa.
Well, what's the one?
You know about that.
What's the one drug I just read about somewhere else that some kids are taking? I think that's it. And it's an elephant tranquilizer?
Fentanyl. Tell us about that.
Well, fentanyl is, it's way more potent than heroin. And now it's on the streets, and it's laced in the heroin. And so, these addicts that are out there, I don't like calling them addicts, but those
who are struggling.
Those that are struggling on the streets, and they're shooting up heroin. They don't know what they're shooting up, and heroin's already deadly.
Yeah.
And now when this fentanyl is traced, you don't have a chance.
It's a pin drop of fentanyl can actually
a pin drop
can kill a kid. Can kill a person.
Yeah, Narcan, sometimes, maybe Narcan might save their life, but after about 9 tries, it's like...
So who the hell decided to try and take an elephant tranquilizer or any of these other crazy things and give them to people? Let's just see what happens if a person takes this.
Oh my God! You know what? Those people really need to. I don't hate people. Well, maybe if
I hate those people. All right, hey, we got a caller that wants to join into the conversation here, who's very intrigued about this. Welcome to the conversation, caller. Please identify yourself.
So I just want to find out, Paul, are you angry at those people because they didn't share the elephant tranquilizer?
No.
No, hi, Rod.
No, I'm amazed that. I mean, people sit in a room.
You immediately what?
It's the great Rod Gontos here, the normal host of the show, who couldn't stay away even for a day. He's out on
I know,
vacation,
come
and
on,
he
what
still
are you
had to come
thinking?
participate here.
Actually, no, I could not stay away. I'm sitting on the beach in Delaware, and I basically have been listening to the whole show. So
there you go.
I understand, but in spirit, I am with you right there in the studio.
How
What
are we
would
doing?
you What would you like to ask Jodi, Rod? I mean,
Yeah, if you were
from
here, what would you
afar,
ask her?
Yeah,
Right.
what would you ask her?
Because we're struggling.
Well, I
We
had
can't
a chance
believe
to
this
talk to
story.
Jodi a little bit before the show, but the thing that drives me, that kind of is amazing is, and Tanya touched on it a little bit, I think, by referencing sort of the affluent areas that we all live and so forth, and that nobody's really immune from this. Is, do you guys remember a book by the name of Valley of the Dolls from
Sure.
a few years
Yes.
back?
Made a movie out of it.
Wow, that's right.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, remember all that addiction stuff that was happening in there?
Uh-huh.
And it was a way of dealing with stress or boredom or whatever you have it. And
Well, that's
and I
the
just
area. I'm a
wanted to
little older than you guys. I grew up in that area of Valium, where suburban housewives all had Valium. They were all on Valium and pills. I mean, I knew lots of my friends' moms that were sort of nodding out in the middle of the day or
You
something.
talked about boredom. You talked
Boredom,
about that.
yeah, right.
Jodi and I, we go to treatment centers and recovery homes, sober livings, and even Dr. Hedrick's also. And we're going to talk about Overtaken, but also like the other side that Dr. Hedrick's talked about, where the common denominator is that people don't have a purpose or a passion,
Yes.
no matter at what age. It's kind of like
Yeah.
they've given up.
They don't have self-esteem to go out there and try to find a job, today. I don't know what it is, but a lot of these teenagers don't feel like they're adequate enough to work and they're bored, and that's what they're doing.
well,
But
Jodi,
even the seniors.
They don't even get up in a hurry about getting their driving license or getting a car.
Kids
So,
today, yeah, right.
Generationally, things have changed, but I wanted to just point out that, and Jodi and I had a chance to talk about this a little bit before, is also life stresses. I mean, a typical profile for a person who is a caregiver, since the show is sort of senior focus, or a baby boomer that is in their 50s, that is usually the profile is it's a woman who has a family of her own, who's taking care of an elder parent or in-law,
Right.
or surviving, or an older spouse, and kids are going to college maybe or whatever. She's working, she's keeping a home, and all of those stresses that come with caregiving that nobody anticipates, and we've talked about extensively, all of those things could drive somebody to go, well, I know I'm taking care of mom, and she just got some prescription, but you know what would one pill hurt?
I got to prop myself up. I got to keep going.
Yeah, and you know what?
Especially if I'm from a generation that smoked pot for
Medicinal.
entertainment when I was in college.
Right.
And as you all know, I was a caregiver for my dad, and I'm telling you, oh my God, thank God I was in school at that time, because that was my drug. Like, I just needed to get through my graduate degree. But I'll tell you, I mean, how many caregivers and families are struggling because they've got so many demands. So what do? They go home and
and we live in a society.
They have a glass of wine, and then it turns into two, and then it turns into a bottle. I mean,
we live in a society where there's a pill for everything.
Yeah.
So
My nail
if you don't
hurts,
feel,
let's
my
take
nail
it
hurts.
all.
If you don't feel good, there's a pill for it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we look to that.
Fix.
Quick
The
fix.
quick
There it
fix.
is. That's
Yeah.
it.
That's
It's
what
a
it
quick fix.
All right, do you want to stay on, Rod, or we just one question, one interjector?
I just wanted to pipe in and say hi and thank Tanya for sitting in, and Jodi, thank you so much.
And remind us that you're at the beach.
Thank
We're here.
you.
We're here
Thank
doing
you
the
for
heavy
having me.
lifting, and you're at the beach here.
We're in Costa Mesa.
I'll bring you some sand back.
Awesome.
But no, thank you so much. Great job, guys, and I look forward to listening to the rest of the show.
Good.
Have fun.
Enjoy
and
yourself.
Thanks for letting me bump in there for a second.
Yeah,
All right.
enjoy
Thank
Hey,
yourself.
let's do a
Thanks
quick-
so much for having me.
Let's do a quick commercial break. This will be a perfect break for it. We'll come back and talk about seniors, because that's really the topic of today. I know we got off in the whole opioid abuse, and it starts with teenagers and even younger. I guess now kids are starting in junior high
10.
and 10,
Oh, yeah.
12, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't end there. If they make it into the 20s and the life, it's a whole nother recurring problem in senior citizens that we can talk about
Big time problem.
in depth. So we'll talk all about that and more right after we come back on the Raad Life with Tanya Brown and Jodi Barber, talking opioid abuse here in Orange County and elsewhere.
Good job, Tanya.
If you are like the majority of Americans, you want to continue living in a familiar environment throughout your maturing years. In fact, according to many surveys, 82% of homeowners overwhelmingly prefer to age in place, which means living in their current homes safely, independently, and comfortably, regardless of age or ability level. With over 30 years of combined experience in residential, commercial, hospitality, and destination resorts fields, Your Home for a Lifetime is a company dedicated to empowering you to maintain your quality of life and independence by helping you make your house your home for a lifetime. Do you want to reorganize or remodel your home? Do you want to add a full bathroom and possibly a bedroom on the main floor? Are you looking to make your kitchen more functional? Is an aging parent moving in, or your child is moving out, or even moving back in? Call Your Home for a Lifetime at 949-492-1872 or check them out on the web at yourhomeforalifetime.com and find out how they can help you make your house your home for a lifetime.
All right, we're back with Tanya Brown sitting in for Rod Gontos, who's having I don't know what they drink in Delaware. What's the beach drink in Delaware? I
have no clue. But don't they have really good crabs?
They really do.
Maine,
they
and
do.
I love Baltimore.
Soft shell crabs.
Oh,
That's
so
what they
good.
have there.
Blue shell crabs.
So while he's enjoying that, we're enjoying a conversation about a topic that, boy, is in the news these days: opiate abuse. Obviously, Jodi shared the painful story of her own son's death from opioid overdose, and we talked about it from that end. Now let's careen to the other end of the spectrum. Senior citizens, they're not popping pills. They're not taking opioids. They're seniors, right? Come on.
Of course not. They're out golfing and cruising around on their
having
golf
a wonderful
carts.
life as they enjoy the final phase.
Not so much. I mean, they have pain medications in their medicine cabinet, okay, and it doesn't discriminate. I mean, they're their daughters, they could be anywhere from they can be anywhere from 20 to 40 or 20 to 60, right? Their family members are coming in. There's medicine cabinets.
Yeah. And
full
what
of pain
about
pills?
The grandparents who have to take care of their kids because they're addicted.
Yeah.
Their kids are addicted.
And they're taking care of the grandkids.
Yeah, exactly.
And the grandkids, they're taking care of their grandkids because of.
So keep in mind, it
parents
doesn't.
are
You don't
addicted.
wake up one day and say, "Okay, listen, I'm going to, intravenously induce myself with heroin." It all starts with.
Right.
There are gateways.
Let's see. This afternoon, I think it's heroin time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there are gateways. There's marijuana, then there's beer, and again, we're talking about the young adolescents here. But then,
for those who have the tendency, anything that makes you feel good or feel high like that suddenly is.
Didn't Russell Brand one time say? And I dig Russell Brand as far like he's a nutcase, but I dig him. But he said to Oprah one time, he said, "You know what?" He goes, "I have a hole in my soul."
Yes.
As many addicts do. He said, but we have a hole in our soul, and I use that in our presentations, and you've heard that before, where we need to fill that with something. So mine was food. I was a food addict. I was 200 pounds. My thing, I hid my food boxes and my empty wrappers and my dirty dishes under my bed and in coat pockets, so it was really no different. So, I mean, but the substance addiction, as far as alcohol and other pill forms, heroin,
anything to fill that hole, anything to fill that need.
Yeah, so it doesn't even need to be
drugs, sex,
pills
alcohol, right?
Exactly,
Yeah.
gambling. So whatever, if you're listening to the show,
Me, it's talking. I'm a talk addict, so I can't stop talking.
But if you
talk in
have-
my sleep.
But if you have a hole in your soul, I mean, reach out to Jodi or myself. It's,
And what do you guys do? So give us a quick view because we're coming.
Well, it's not me. It's Jodi. Jodi, you.
So what's the work you do, and how do people reach you?
You have Overtaken, which was actually nominated. Actually, it was given an award for the Newport Beach Film Festival. What was that title?
It's been in a few film festivals.
And what is it?
Well, Overtaken's a short documentary, and Christine Brand and I produced that in 2011 because we needed to educate people. Nobody was educated. Nobody knew about this epidemic. Nobody knew that prescription drugs are dangerous. Nobody knew that This is happening to good families, to teenagers that played football stars, cheerleaders, college. My son was in college level. This can happen to anybody at any time. I wanted to stop the stigma that surrounds addiction through Overtaken. And so this is a documentary that is in schools across the nation as part of the health curriculum. It comes with a lesson plan. And it's
part of the drug courts too here in Orange County.
That's right. Thank you. It is actually in the DUI classes being used, and the judges tell them to go home and watch it on YouTube and bring them back a full-page report.
And these are people who I worked with. I mean, they've recovered.
And what do I see if I see this thing? How long is it, and what? Give me a synopsis of the story here. What is Overtaken?
So Overtaken consists of several young adults from Orange County telling their heartfelt, tragic stories of where the addiction led them. And so
where it started, where it led them.
These were teenagers, young adults from Aliso Nagel High School, Dana Hills High School, local high schools, and again, they were on the football team, and they were cheerleaders and straight A students on student council. Yeah. And so they tried these, prescription drugs. They got hooked. It led to heroin. It led to jail, led to prison. And, for many, it's led to death. Wow. And so they talk about their stories, and it's just very educational to hear,
So it's not you preaching, it's them teaching.
It's them sharing.
This is their stories. And what I do...
And where are they now? That's the cool thing, Overtaken too.
Yeah, so I do presentations, and I'm in schools, and not enough schools out here, though. If you'd like to get a presentation of Overtaken into your school, middle school and high school, let me know.
How do they reach you?
Overtakenlives.org.
Overtaken Lives, Lives.
Lives.org.
All right.
And so I was actually doing a presentation at Hoag Hospital and for the patients there, and I realized that all of the people in Overtaken are clean and sober, and I wanted to spread the message of hope, because as long as they're walking, talking, and breathing, there is always hope. So
it's not a death sentence if you get hooked on this stuff. It can be if you don't stop, but it doesn't mean that you can't stop.
Well, the thing is, it's like everybody always thinks that they're alone in all their challenges. It's, you know what, you open up the door, you knock up on that door, it's the same story, different face. I mean, so there's Gina, there's Cole, there's, so many other people that I've had. Andrea. I mean, these are people who I personally have worked with, and now they are working in the world of recovery. And if they're not working in the world of recovery, they're married, they have kids. So if you are listening and you have a kid, or maybe it's you yourself or a grandkid, whomever, there's always hope. You just got to knock on the door. We don't know who you are.
Let me ask you a tough question, because goes to lots of addictive behaviors, destructive behaviors. You say, stop it, for Pete's sake, stop it. We had Sandra Hutchins, the sheriff, in here, and they talk about their I think it's like they call it something like get out of jail program or something. And the idea is these people are repeat offenders. Why do they keep going into prostitution? Why do they keep going into drugs? Why do they keep doing these things over and over and over again, knowing they're going to come to jail, knowing how it outcomes?
Well, you know why? I'll tell you one reason.
Okay.
We have this vicious cycle of all these young people that I have tried to help through the years that struggle. They still struggle today. A lot of them are clean and sober, but then there's those that aren't. And one of the reasons is because they're not staying in treatment because they don't have the insurance coverage. They can't stay in treatment longer than 90 days, and they need long-term treatment. So they come out and their brains aren't still, fixed, and they have that craving. And
once an addict, always an addict. Right? If you find that you have a hole that needs to be filled, that hole may be there for the rest of your life. You just have to learn to deal with it.
I don't like to label things, but you know what? I think it's more like once a batterer, kind of always a batterer. But it's like I don't like to put that label on things.
I don't either. You know what?
But at the same time, we all have a choice. Like I can put that needle away, put that beverage away, or I can leave, for 5 minutes and count to 10 while, my partner's in the other room so I don't do damage.
But it's something you have to know in yourself, come to realize that, and you've got to recognize that
it's hard. It's difficult for them.
Something you're going to have to face, a struggle maybe for the rest of your life here.
but but they can live a very, very happy,
Clearly.
healthy, normal
Clearly.
lifestyle.
What do you think of all the 12-step programs and all that kind of stuff? Is any of that stuff?
It works for some. It doesn't work for all.
The idea of group support rather than trying to do it alone. That's the deal. And of trying to find a support network to keep you clean and sober and
it works.
accountable.
It works for some and it doesn't. I mean, I know people who do 2 meetings a day for 30 years.
I was just going to say that. You know what? Going to those meetings helps them. It really does. And it's not really, it's just an hour out of your day.
That's it.
So no one size fits all type of solution.
Don't be ashamed.
Here.
I mean, shoot, if you got a problem, if you got a challenge, shoot, you know what? I battled with depression, anxiety. I attempted a suicide. I'm announcing it. I wrote a book on it. I speak publicly about it. It takes courage to announce that, but once you do, you realize, like,
we're all
wow,
we're all cringing as you say
Tanya,
that here.
Tanya, you just saved somebody's life by announcing that.
I hope you're not alone. Let's talk about the NFL really fast, okay? Because we talk about adolescence. And I know, Jodi, you met with the Chargers, and you're forever my forever enemy. And because I'm
the Chargers are with us now. Come on, we're we are them.
No,
right.
I'm the Charger. I'm the San Diegan. I live in Orange County, but I am a San Diegan by heart.
We stole the Chargers.
My Chargers guys, I love them. But talk about the challenge that the NFL. I mean, I'm not excluding anybody, and I'm not pointing anybody out. But a lot of the NFL teams, they have their own pharmacy.
And right there in the locker room.
Right there in the locker room.
And so, which is why last year I did that event, Better Sore Than Sorry.
Better sore than sorry.
Yeah,
I like
and that was
all
with
right.
Steve Garvey. Steve Garvey was there.
I have a video. It's on YouTube. Watch it on YouTube.
Okay.
Better Sore Than Sorry. It's very educational because athletes, most of these boys on my poster did play football and they were injured. A lot of them are legitimate reasons why they get hooked. They're not all, just because they wanted to party one night.
Right.
So yeah, NFL, we know that there's a problem there.
And let's just talk about that because we have had some football players and NFL kind of stars in here, and they've addressed this type of thing.
Good.
The pressure to perform. The pressure. I'm hurt. I can't take 3 weeks off. I got to get on the field. Someone's going to steal my slot. Someone's going to steal my space. I got to get back out there and go.
What will the people think of me?
Shoot me up and let me go.
The pressure.
Yeah.
And that's what's in the video. You'll hear that. The pressure. The pressure.
So I think, this whole conversation, really, it doesn't discriminate. We've talked a little bit, of course, about the senior care, but it really starts with the adolescents. Then it goes to the teenagers. Then it goes to the adults. Then it goes to the seniors. I just read something, too, on Facebook where somebody became addicted to pills because he was experiencing pain from the Korean War.
Oh.
Okay, so this
a few years ago, yeah, right.
Yeah, just a few years ago. This does not discriminate. I mean, this has no borders. So
how about CEOs? We hear a lot of stuff. We do mostly business shows in here. Every so often we get somebody who comes in and says, you don't know how many CEOs are addicts and hooked on stuff and trying to keep, like an athlete, to keep themselves going 20 hours a day and 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I walked into a home. A wife called me asking to help her husband, and he was a successful owner of a business, and it was a beautiful large home, and I walked in there into his office to try to talk to him and try to get him help. He had a crushed Vicodin in his you can see it in his nostril. And it was tragic. It really was. And, it was really, really sad. I'll never forget that. And then they ended up divorcing.
Okay, that's big because it doesn't just affect the addict; it affects everyone, the entire family. And Jodi, I mean, we have many acquaintances, and we're like, oh my God, it will take an entire family down. So I just really want to encourage anybody and everybody. It does not matter how old you are. It does not matter what profession you're in. It does not matter. As long as you are walking this earth, breathing this air, you can become a victim of something, whether it's pills, whether it's heroin, which is basically pill form, domestic violence, anything. If you walk this earth, nobody is immune to to challenges or struggles
I'm
or
going to
trauma.
miss it all. I've decided I'm going to miss it all here. I'm just going to avoid it all here. There's no more pain or problems in my life. I don't want any more of that. I'll tell you one painful story that I saw, and it's an example of what you're talking about. My mother died several years ago, and for the last 5 or 6 years, I now look back, she was a drug addict. She was doped up. She had Parkinson's. She was struck by lightning and lived, and so she had all these horrible things. So they, legitimately gave her lots and lots and lots of drugs. But nobody ever asked what happens when you pile 3 or 4 of these things together in a drug cocktail.
Yeah.
And what kind of interaction when you take this one and this one and this one. And some of them she'd been on so long. She had been on Valium since the 60s or 70s. And the doctor said, I'm not even going to take her off of that. It'll just upset her too much. So we just throw that one in just for laughs because she was always the nervous type. And that one's just stuck. She's just hooked on that one. And I remember looking at my mother the last few years, and she so much wanted to die. And she just would, you'd look at her and you'd say, oh, Mom, you live another 10 years. She'd say, oh, God, I hope not.
Yeah. But
end this misery for my mother finally died. I remember us sitting there the night before my dad, and I saw him an only child. And my dad said, we're good Irish Catholics. Let's say a prayer for Mom. And I looked and I said, what are we praying for? Peace. End this nightmare.
Yeah.
And in years, and I look at her, she became a drug addict, really. My dad would be angry. He's not with us either. He'd be screaming at me, your mother's not a drug addict, But she was so overprescribed pills. She took so many different things for so many different problems that she was just a zombie those last few years.
Oh,
and how many seniors are overprescribed drugs, and they trust the doctor completely. The doctor prescribed this. I've got to keep taking it, even though the doctor died or the doctor doesn't even see you anymore.
Yeah.
I see that happen all the time with seniors.
I know.
Way over, and it's a way to shut them up too.
They're naive.
Mom's not going to. She wasn't going to cry. She's not going to complain. Let's just drug her up. And senior citizens' homes are doing this all the time. They're just drugging them up, putting them to sleep.
And I work in hospice, so I go into some of these facilities, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so sad.
Just drug them up.
And then the doctors write it up as when they die, they write it up as natural causes because of all their medical conditions. So
heart failure with the kids, right?
Yeah. So I hate to know what the statistics are. I mean, today, when you add that up, and when you add up the seniors who really died from an overdose versus natural causes.
I think Tony Rikakis did something. It wasn't this year. It was last year. He was unable to attend, so he had somebody fill in,
yes,
he did.
I was there.
Yeah, the woman, right? It was a woman, Wendy, I think. I don't remember her name, but anyway, it was somebody who worked in the DA's office, and she was talking not only about financial fraud, but she was talking about hide your medicine, hide the pills, and if.
So should we become?
I think the mantra is really, if you're on medication, take them as prescribed. When I had my breakdown, I didn't take my medication as
Senior
prescribed.
citizens are dying today. It's an epidemic of them dying, and they were taking as prescribed.
That was my point. So should we be careful?
They weren't abusing them.
That's my point.
Okay, good point.
Too many. My wife and I are more the type. The doctor gives you 20 pills. I'll take 5 of them and hope that I don't have to take all 20 of them here.
No, good, Jodi.
I put off. Now, maybe that's a dumb thing to do because, as you're saying, you're under doctor's care. They're supposed to prescribe this. But too many times they're giving you too much.
So, Jodi, talk about that.
Okay, so
that was a slap across the face, and I'm glad you did that.
I'm sorry. No,
it's good.
But
Don't be sorry.
This is what's happening, and people have to know this. And, the thing with the senior citizens, like my mother-in-law, she's 87. She weighs 90 pounds, and the doses that are probably given her, the milligrams, probably are the same as a 180 a man, what they give a man. Right. I mean, you have to, the doctors have to consider that. She's 90 pounds.
Really fast. Tell us, because we're running out of time. We're running out of time. Tell us about cures.
Oh, well.
Or cares. What is it? Cares or cures?
Cures. It's a database.
C-U-R-E-S.
C-U-R-E-S, capitals. That is requiring physicians and pharmacists to go into and check. It's a monitoring system that you can check and see who's doctor shopping and who's overprescribed. And I felt like, there was no regulating. That was the first thing my husband and I said when Lisa Singh gave out all these pills. Where's the regulations here? So
there's no oversight. Doctor can prescribe whatever they think they are until they're called up on charges. Or before the board.
I know. Even the senior citizens are doctor shopping. I mean, it's sad, but
to get a pill.
Again, it does not discriminate.
It does not discriminate. So these physicians, the doctors, and the pharmacists have the pill bottles, and they're handing it to you. So they really need to check and see. They have to go into that database and every single
and
time.
It's their responsibility, because if something happens, they're liable.
Yeah.
So in our last 30 seconds, give us some websites everybody can go look at and learn more.
Do it, Jodi. Night of Remembrance, that's a big one.
I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and my website's overtakenlives.org. August 20th is, August 31st is International Overdose Awareness Day, and Tanya will be speaking at my event. Cheryl Sheen and I have an event coming up August 20th in Laguna Niguel if you're interested. We're almost full, but you can contact me if you'd like to come.
Jodi Barber. No E at the end.
Tanya
right?
Brown, West Gear. They will be our speakers, and it's going to be a very important evening to remember our loved ones lost, as well as spread the message of hope.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we hope you will come back and give us more hope and ideas
sure
of how to do this. So
I'll make sure of it, Rod.
All right. Take us out, Tanya.
Okay. No, I'm so excited. I mean, this has just been an amazing segment. Jodi, you're never, I mean, you just always lighten my spirit and educate me on one more thing, and I'm glad you slapped me across the face on that one, because that's good. And for anybody who is struggling, again, if you walk this earth, breathe this air, you can become anything that, nobody's immune. Yeah, it can happen to you. So please, if don't get to the point where it's not happening to my kid, because if it does happen to your kid, I don't want that, nor does Jodi. So if you see the signs, knock on that door for help before
scream,
something
say
happens.
something. Yeah, right. All right. Well, we're going to say this. Thank you, Rod, for letting us carry on without you. Have fun on the shore.
Thank you, Rod.
And see us again.
You have been listening to the Raad Life radio show with your host and age explorer, Rad Gontos, brought to you on the one and only OCTalkRadio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.